What happens when two music industry powerhouses clash on live television in a way that nobody saw coming? What happens when a simple interview question triggers a chain reaction that exposes years of buried industry secrets and personal betrayals? Today, we're diving into the explosive moment when Gwen Stefani walked off Kelly Clarkson's show during what started as a routine promotional interview, but quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable television moments in recent memory. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story has layers you won't believe. Kelly Clarkson sat across from Gwen Stefani in the familiar bright studio setting, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows as cameras rolled. For what was supposed to be a lighthearted segment about Gwen's latest project, the energy felt different from the start, though viewers at home couldn't quite put their finger on why. Kelly's usual warm demeanor seemed slightly strained, while Gwen appeared more guarded than her typical media appearances. "So Gwen, you've been in the music industry for over 2 decades now," Kelly began, her voice carrying that professional tone that longtime talk show hosts master. "Looking back, do you feel like the industry has changed for the better? Especially for women?" Gwen shifted slightly in her chair, her fingers drumming against her knee. "You know, Kelly, that's such a loaded question. I think there are some people who want to paint this picture that everything's so much better now. But honestly, I'm not sure that's entirely true." "What do you mean by that?" Kelly pressed, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. "I mean, we still have the same gatekeepers, the same power structures. People just got better at hiding their true intentions behind politically correct language." Gwen's voice carried a slight edge that made Kelly's eyebrows raise almost imperceptibly. The studio audience remained quiet, sensing something brewing. Beneath the surface, Kelly cleared her throat and tried to steer the conversation back to safer territory. "Well, I think what's exciting is seeing more women in executive positions, more female producers and writers getting recognition." "Recognition," Gwen repeated, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "That's interesting that you mention recognition, Kelly, because I remember when certain people were very quick to take credit for other people's work, especially when those people were women." Kelly's smile faltered for just a moment. "I'm not sure I follow." "Oh, I think you do." Gwen's voice was steady, but there was steel underneath. "I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Breakaway album, for instance." The mention of Kelly's breakthrough album seemed to freeze the entire studio. Even the camera operators appeared to sense the shift in energy as Kelly's face went pale. "Gwen, I'm not sure what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything." Gwen cut her off smoothly. "I'm saying it directly. You want to talk about women getting recognition? Let's talk about the women who wrote half the songs on that album and never got proper credit. Let's talk about the demo vocals that mysteriously disappeared from the final production credits." Kelly's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. "That's absolutely ridiculous. Every songwriter and producer on Breakaway is credited exactly as they should be. I would never let your team bury inconvenient truths when they didn't fit the narrative you wanted to sell." Gwen's voice was rising now, but she maintained her composure. "Because I have receipts, Kelly. I have the original session notes, the email chains, the voice memos." The studio fell into an uncomfortable silence as Kelly struggled to find her words. Her media training was kicking in, but the personal nature of the accusations seemed to rattle her usual professional demeanor. "Gwen, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding," Kelly said carefully. "Maybe we should take a commercial break." "And no, I don't think we should take a break," Gwen interrupted. "I think we should finish this conversation. Because you asked me about women in the industry, and I'm telling you about what really happens to women in this industry. The erasure, the credit stealing, the way powerful people rewrite history to make themselves look better." Kelly's voice became more defensive. "I've always been supportive of other women in music. My entire career has been built on integrity and authenticity." "Integrity." Gwen's laugh was sharp now. "Kelly, you literally sat in that studio while they played you demo tracks that other women had poured their hearts into, and you recorded over them like they never existed. And now you want to sit here and lecture me about how much better things are for women." The accusations were becoming more specific, more personal. Kelly's face was flushed, and her usual composure was cracking. "That's not how the music industry works, Gwen. Demos get reworked, songs get rearranged. That's the collaborative process. Nobody was trying to erase anyone." "Collaborative," Gwen repeated mockingly. "Is that what you call it when someone else writes the bridge, comes up with the hook, and you just show up to sing it and take full credit? Because I call that theft." The tension in the studio was palpable now. Even the cameras kept rolling as Kelly's production team looked between their boss and the guest, unsure whose authority to follow in this unprecedented moment. Kelly's face was red with anger and embarrassment, while Gwen remained seated with an almost eerie calm, as if she had been waiting years for this exact moment. "You want to know what really happened?" Gwen continued, her voice cutting through the tension. "Let me tell you about Sarah Chen, a 23-year-old songwriter who spent 3 months crafting the melody and lyrics for what became your biggest hit. She submitted it through proper channels, got a meeting with your team, played it for them in that same studio where you recorded it 6 weeks later. Kelly's breathing was becoming more labored. That's not how it happened. Sarah was paid for her contributions. She was credited as a co-writer. Co-writer, Gwen's voice rose for the first time. Kelly, she wrote the entire song. The only thing you added was your name to the credits. She got 15% of the royalties for a song that was completely hers, and when she tried to fight it, your legal team buried her in paperwork until she gave up. The studio audience was completely captivated now. Some people leaning forward in their seats, others covering their mouths in shock. This was not the feel-good daytime television they had come to expect from Kelly's show. Sarah signed a standard industry contract, Kelly said through gritted teeth. She knew exactly what she was agreeing to. Nobody forced her to do anything. A standard industry contract that your team wrote specifically to screw over young writers. Gwen shot back. You know what Sarah is doing now, Kelly? She's working at a coffee shop in Nashville because your team made sure she'd never get another shot in this industry. They blacklisted her for asking questions about her own song. Kelly's hands were trembling now, and she looked toward her show's executive producer in the wings, making a cutting motion across her throat. But Gwen wasn't finished, and Sarah wasn't the only one. Gwen continued relentlessly. There was Marcus Williams, the producer who created that signature sound on your third album. He came to your team with a complete demo, full production, everything. Your people loved it so much they hired him to produce the entire album, then fired him 3 weeks before release and gave all the production credits to someone else. Marcus was difficult to work with. Kelly snapped. He was unprofessional. He missed deadlines. He was unreliable. He was gay. Kelly, he was a young gay black producer in an industry that wasn't ready for him, and your team used that against him. They spread rumors about his professionalism, his reliability, his character, all to justify stealing his work. The accusation hung in the air like a bomb. Kelly's face went from red to white in seconds, and she looked like she might be sick. That's a lie, Kelly whispered. That's a complete lie, and you know it. I know it because Marcus told me himself. Right before he left the industry entirely, Gwen said, her voice softer now, but no less devastating. He trusted the wrong people. Kelly, he thought your team would protect him, would give him the credit he deserved. Instead, they used him up and threw him away. Kelly was pacing now, her professional mask completely shattered. This is insane. You're sitting here making these wild accusations with no proof, no evidence, just stories that somebody told you. I have proof, Gwen said simply. I have emails, I have recordings, I have contracts, I have everything. Kelly, the question is, what are you going to do about it? The studio fell silent again as Kelly stopped pacing and stared at her guest. For a moment, it seemed like she might break down completely, but then something hardened in her expression. You know what I think this is really about? Kelly said, her voice taking on a cruel edge. I think this is about jealousy. I think this is about the fact that your career peaked 15 years ago, and you can't stand that mine is still going strong. Gwen's calm demeanor cracked for the first time. Excuse me, you heard me, Kelly continued, emboldened by getting a reaction. Your last album flopped, your tour was half-empty venues, and now you're sitting here trying to tear down someone who's actually still relevant. This isn't about justice or credit or any of that nonsense. This is about a has-been trying to stay in the headlines. The words hit like a physical blow. Gwen's face went pale, and for a moment, she looked genuinely hurt. But then her expression hardened into something cold and dangerous. A has-been, Gwen repeated slowly. Kelly, I was selling out stadiums when you were still singing in church choirs. I was writing hit songs when you were a contestant on a reality show, hoping someone would notice you. At least I earned my success. Kelly fired back. I didn't have to marry a famous musician to get attention. I didn't have to reinvent myself every few years because people got tired of my act. The personal attacks were escalating now, moving far beyond the original accusations about stolen songs and credit. This was becoming a full-scale character assassination from both sides. You want to talk about earning success? Gwen stood up, slowly, her voice deadly quiet. Let's talk about how you earned your success. Kelly, let's talk about the casting couch meetings, the compromises you made, the people you stepped on to get where you are. Kelly's face went white. How dare you? How dare I? What? Tell the truth, because that's what this is about, isn't it? You've built this entire persona around being authentic and relatable. But underneath it all, you're just another industry puppet who sold her soul for fame. Get out, Kelly said, her voice shaking with rage. Get out of my studio right now. I'm not going anywhere, Gwen replied calmly. Not until people know the truth about who you really are. Kelly turned to her security team, who had been watching the exchange with growing alarm. Get her out of here now. You're really going to have me physically removed for telling the truth? Gwen asked, still seated but now looking around at the approaching security guards. This is how you handle criticism. This is the authentic Kelly Clarkson everyone loves. This isn't criticism, Kelly screamed. This is a coordinated attack. and I won't stand for it on my own show. Gwen finally stood up, smoothing down her dress and picking up her purse. You know what, Kelly? As Gwen reached the edge of the stage, she paused and turned back to face Kelly one final time. The studio lights caught the determination in her eyes as she delivered what would become the most quoted moment of the entire confrontation. You know what the saddest part is, Kelly? Gwen said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent studio. I actually used to respect you. I thought you were different from the rest of them. But you're just another industry machine, grinding up young artists and spitting them out when you're done with them. Kelly's hands were clenched into fists at her sides. Don't you dare lecture me about respect. You came on my show under false pretenses, ambushed me with lies and accusations, and now you're trying to play the victim. False pretenses. Gwen laughed, but there was no humor in it. Kelly, I've been trying to have this conversation with you for 3 years. Your people keep blocking my calls, refusing my requests for meetings, shutting down any attempt at dialogue. This was the only way to get you to actually listen. The revelation that this confrontation had been planned sent a visible shock through the studio audience. Some people gasped. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Kelly's face went through a series of emotions as she processed what Gwen had just admitted. You planned this, Kelly said slowly. You came on my show specifically to destroy me on live television. I came on your show to give you a chance to make things right. Gwen corrected. I wanted to see if you would take responsibility for what you've done, maybe even help some of the people you've hurt. But instead, you've proven exactly what kind of person you are. Kelly's voice cracked as she responded. What kind of person am I? Gwen, tell me, since you seem to know me so well. You're a coward, Gwen said simply. You're someone who takes credit for other people's work, destroys careers to protect your own image, and then hides behind lawyers and publicists when someone calls you out. You're everything that's wrong with this industry. The words hit Kelly like physical blows. She stumbled slightly, reaching for her chair to steady herself. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. The industry is complicated. There are contracts and legal issues. I can't control every decision that gets made, but you can control whether you speak up, Gwen shot back. You can control whether you use your platform to help people or to silence them. You chose silence, Kelly. You chose to let people suffer rather than risk your own reputation. Kelly's eyes were filling with tears now, but her voice remained defiant. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The expectations, the contracts, the people depending on me. I have hundreds of employees. I have responsibilities. Sarah Chen had responsibilities too, Gwen replied coldly. She had student loans to pay, rent to cover, a career to build. But your responsibilities apparently mattered more than hers. The mention of Sarah's name again seemed to break something in Kelly. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I tried to help her, I really did. But the legal team said it was too complicated, that it would set a precedent. A precedent for what? Treating people fairly. Giving credit where it's due. God forbid we set that kind of precedent in the music industry. Kelly looked up, her makeup streaked with tears. What do you want from me, Gwen? What do you want me to do? I want you to tell the truth, Gwen said firmly. I want you to publicly acknowledge what happened to Sarah, to Marcus, to all the others. I want you to make it right. I can't do that, Kelly whispered. You know I can't do that. The legal implications alone would destroy everything I've built. Then you've made your choice, Gwen said, turning toward the exit again. You've chosen your career over your conscience, your image over your integrity. I hope it was worth it. Kelly watched as Gwen walked toward the stage exit, her heels clicking against the floor in the stunned silence. But just before Gwen could disappear into the wings, Kelly called out desperately. Wait, Kelly said, her voice breaking. Please, just wait. Gwen stopped but didn't turn around. What? If I try to make this right, if I try to help these people, will you help me? Will you work with me instead of against me? For a moment, Gwen stood perfectly still, considering the offer, then she slowly turned back to face Kelly, her expression unreadable. Kelly, I've been trying to work with you for 3 years. I've sent emails, made phone calls, reached out through mutual friends. Your team has blocked me at every turn. Why should I believe this time would be different? Because now it's public, Kelly said, gesturing toward the cameras. Because now I can't pretend it's not happening. Because now I have to face the consequences either way. Gwen studied Kelly's face for a long moment, looking for any sign of genuine remorse or commitment. You're asking me to trust you after everything that's happened. After you called me a has-been and questioned my motives. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that I'm not the person you think I am, Kelly replied. I'm asking you to help me be better. The studio remained silent as everyone waited for Gwen's response. She looked around at the audience, at the cameras, at the production team, all watching this moment that would define both women's careers going forward. Here's what's going to happen, Gwen said finally. You're going to have your lawyers contact Sarah Chen and Marcus Williams within 48 hours. You're going to offer them proper compensation and credit for their work. You're going to issue public apologies and acknowledgments, and you're going to establish a fund to help other artists who've been cheated by the industry. Kelly nodded quickly. Yes, okay, I can do that. I will do that. And if you don't follow through, Gwen continued, if this turns out to be just another publicity stunt, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. I have documentation, Kelly, I have evidence, and I won't hesitate to use it. I understand, Kelly said quietly. I won't let you down. Gwen stared at her for another long moment, then nodded slightly. We'll see. With that, she turned and walked off the stage, leaving Kelly standing alone in front of the cameras and the stunned studio audience. The confrontation was over, but the real work was just beginning. The cameras finally stopped rolling as the audience sat in complete silence, processing what they had just witnessed. Kelly remained standing in the center of the stage, tears streaming down her face, the weight of her choices and their consequences finally hitting her full force. This wasn't just the end of an interview, it was the beginning of a reckoning that would reshape how the music industry treated its most vulnerable artists. And it all started with one woman's decision to walk off a talk show rather than stay silent about injustice. So what do you think? Was Gwen right to confront Kelly so publicly, or should she have tried to handle this privately? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more stories about the moments that changed everything in entertainment. These confrontations reveal more about the industry than any red carpet interview ever could.